I'm here today with Ben Stockton, the owner of our virtual academy, and we've already spoken about VR in automotive training, but today we're looking particularly at VR in colleges. So to start off with, Ben, what's the idea behind using VR in automotive education, and how did your company get involved in it?
Hiya, Tosca. Yeah, the idea behind it is sometimes sometimes there can be requirements to deliver training on certain subjects and not necessarily have all of the equipment available to be able to deliver it. And there could be other times when training wants to be delivered off-site or remotely, or as part of homework. And again, if you want to teach something that is a practical process-driven thing remotely, or when the learners are at home or away from the workshop, VR is a really good solution for that. We got into it through first of all having a bit of an interest in VR back from many years ago. I think it was a VR headset called an Oculus Rift before Meta bought them out, and playing with that, blimey, well over 10 years ago, and then through the production of our virtual academy videos, we needed skilled modelers to make some of our graphics, and we had a modeler that wanted to turn their hand to some virtual reality production as well, and with a combination of programming skills and modeling skills, it's possible to make a virtual reality experience. So we did a little pilot project for a client once, and learned a lot about the art, and then felt it would make sense to start doing that on a broader level for ourselves and any other partners that wish to work with us. And that's very much what we've begun doing now.
So you're sort of responding to a need that has emerged.
Well, yeah, that's right. There's a lot of interest in VR, and also sometimes you need to make things to see if the market is there. And we've there's a certain amount of us doing that, and a certain amount of us discovering that there very much is a market there.
So when people think about VR in colleges, they often think about like gaming and simulations. What does it actually look like for automotive training in that sphere?
Well, it's designed to look as much like a realistic professional workshop-based training environment as you'd get when you go to a quality training provider, except that environment is totally virtual and exists in this virtual environment. And then, much like you might do in a workshop environment, you might teach a learner a procedure that they may not have conducted for the first time, and that might be conventionally conducted by a trainer performing a demonstration to a group of learners. Well, learning through watching works to a degree, but learning through doing is a stronger method of cementing memories. And so what we can do with a VR environment is is we can issue headsets to an infinite number of learners, and those learners can go through that, let's call it what would conventionally be an instructor-led demonstration, but actually do it themselves. And so we place an instructor within that virtual environment. It's a virtual instructor. The virtual instructor talks the learner through the steps and explains the logic behind the procedures, squeezes in some technical background knowledge as well, and then the theory goes that the learner can complete that process all by themselves as many times as they like, and get a real hands-on experience of doing whatever this procedure is, as opposed to simply watching that procedure being conducted.
Okay, that's really interesting. So is the virtual instructor, does it look like a human, or is it like a robot? Or
yeah, it looks remarkably like me.
It looks like
So
you. Okay,
yeah, I get filmed in our green screen studio, and I'm delivering these steps and these gems of knowledge, and then the learners are going to be watching me on a number of screens that are within their virtual workshop environment, and essentially are following what I'm advising them to do.
Right. Okay. So vehicle technology has changed massively over the last decade. Even I know that, and I'm not really big time into cars and automotive stuff. So how has the complexity in the technology pushed forward immersive training tools like VR?
Yeah, well, I mean, a good example would be ADAS. There's been a huge explosion of ADAS equipped vehicles on the roads through a combination of customer demands and regulations. And so learning about that subject is becoming more and more important. Now, there's a bit of a catch for training providers that are wishing to deliver subjects such as ADAS, and that's that it can be relatively expensive to purchase the equipment and vehicles and what have you to be able to allow a learner to be able to go through that process. Now, VR is brilliant for that, because we can scan all of the various items that are required for ADAS calibration and scan the vehicle and what have you, and we can allow colleges and training providers to be able to teach this subject in a really realistic, practical way, but without them needing to purchase all of that equipment for a lesson that may be conducted 4 or 5 times a year, and it's hard to justify that investment if you're a training provider or college.
So without VR, those skills then possibly wouldn't be taught.
Yeah, they either wouldn't be taught, or they would be taught in a different way, a much less practical way, and a bit more biased towards theory, I would imagine.
So do you see VR in colleges as where we are now as a nice to have, or do you think it's becoming a necessity to keep up with the industry?
I think I'd say at the moment it is a nice to have, going in the direction of a necessity, because as things change and evolve, is if the only investment is in the headsets, which, I mean, it's possible to buy VR headsets for a few £100s each. Well, if you buy 10 headsets for the sake of argument, let's call it £3,000 or £4,000 investment there. Well, that can be the medium for delivering a huge range of training. And as every time this new piece of technology comes out or new piece of hardware comes out, that in a perfect world that training environment would conventionally be purchasing, well, they've already got the headsets. All they need to do is gain access to the software then, and gaining access to the software is a massive bargain in comparison to investing in the physical hardware. So I think we'll see it's going to be something which continues to grow and grow throughout the training industry.
Mm-hmm. So what specific problems do you think VR solves compared to traditional classroom stroke workshop training in colleges now?
Well, getting learners out of the classroom is often a good thing. And learners learn in all sorts of different ways. And trying to teach learners in a practical way is considered a good thing. You know, long gone are the days of learners sitting in a classroom looking at a whiteboard and a PowerPoint presentation, and that is their day. So training organizations having the opportunity to start throwing in some different methods of delivering training can only be a good thing for broadening the appeal of education to a wider number of learners. I mean, just getting some learners' passions fired up can be easier said than done. You know, young people have grown up in a very electronic age, and so training providers meeting those sorts of electronic expectations of their learners using training methods such as virtual learning, online learning, and VR is meeting the needs of young people.
And isn't there something about VR learning environments improving knowledge retention rates?
Yeah, certainly learning through doing is far superior to learning through watching, and the memory is a complicated thing, and so, you know, I remember the first time I used VR, and I remember it involved, or at least I used VR in an educational situation, and it was to do with doing a fairly mechanical process that I used to do multiple times as an apprentice. It was to do with taking a tire off a rim, and I remember doing it for the very first time in VR, and it took me straight back to when I did it in real life. And that was when I truly understood the word immersive. And that method of learning through this deep immersion into what you're doing creates memories, because it's an experience that you were doing and you were there. And that makes those synapses that create your memories join in a much stronger way. I'm no scientist, but that's what it feels like in my brain for sure.
Are you using the term VR as an umbrella term to include augmented reality, or is it just straight pure VR?
No, I'm not really. When I talk about VR, I am talking about VR, as in being in a virtual reality, a virtual environment with virtual items in there, and I'm interacting with nothing in the real world apart
Right.
from that headset and those controllers.
Mm.
Whereas augmented reality means that we are augmenting reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got real components, real items, and those that real experience is being added to with virtual items, and it's that combination of the two that makes something augmented.
Mm.
Now, we've certainly got the capability to make augmented reality activities and experiences, but what we're rolling out right now is virtual reality, and
Mm.
yeah, it'd be mis-selling to describe it as anything other than that.
Mm. So can you walk us through a typical VR learning experience for a student
Mm.
system, but also maybe mention, because I'm like, well, which courses would a student be on to have
Yeah,
VR experience?
yeah. So couple of classic examples might be something to do with high voltage safety. Could be something to do with an ADAS calibration, or a four-wheel alignment, or even learning something a bit more theoretical, such as the fundamentals of electricity. But
Okay.
if I think about, say, high voltage safety, a learner's experience when working with high voltage safety involves quite a few things before even touching the car. Things like wearing the appropriate clothing and making sure the environment is nice and clear, and making sure there's no metal items in your pockets, and putting barriers up to prevent others from entering the high voltage working environment. So in our VR experiences, we will include those sorts of pre-checks or pre-work actions before then beginning practical activity that might involve turning the ignition off and locking the key away in a lockable cabinet, and
Yeah.
disconnecting the auxiliary 12-volt battery to make sure that there's no way that the contactors could be electrically closed midway through a high voltage activity. And so we'll take the learner from beginning to end, on the very start of the process to the very end of the process, with
Mhm.
no sections missed out in between. We'll make sure that the learning experience is as comprehensive as a very high quality instructor-led demo
Mm.
may be.
Wow, it's brilliant. So ADAS is, you've mentioned it quite a few times. So if we look at that one, so it's critical across the whole workshop, not just for technicians, but for the whole sort of employee based. Um,
Mm.
how would you teach like ADAS particularly, that concept effectively using VR?
Mm. Yeah. So yeah, we're just on the cusp of releasing an ADAS awareness suite of videos, which is very much designed for the whole workshop, and for the whole garage, I should say, really, so that things like the booking in process is understood, and the analysis whether a vehicle has even got ADAS or not is understood. What sensors are going to be found on a vehicle, and what the regulations are around the subject of ADAS. So that would be
Mm.
a bit like our awareness to ADAS suite of video content. But what we've not done there is taught the process of carrying out a quality ADAS calibration, including all of the audit trail. So what we chose to do for our ADAS VR experience is to teach the learner how to actually conduct that calibration. So that wouldn't be something that is designed to support front of house, for example, which the video and awareness of ADAS is. It's designed, the VR experience is designed totally for the technician or the apprentice technician to learn what should be done, what the pre-steps should be, what the workshop environment needs to be like before even considering if it's suitable for an ADAS calibration. You know, is the floor too shiny? Have we got bright lights resulting in shadows being cast that could confuse cameras on vehicles or optical sensors on vehicles? Yeah, so yeah, it's very much based around the process of an ADAS calibration and very much processed around technical learning.
So in colleges, what courses would they be using ADAS on?
Yeah, so you know, any learner going through a full apprenticeship needs to be learning about the very important basics and fundamentals, including health and safety and tooling and fabrication, perhaps, and things like that, basic engine management. But a lot of training providers like to bolt on some extra key things to make sure that their learners are as workshop ready as they possibly can be when they've completed their apprenticeship.
ADAS is becoming much more of a critical skill now in workshops and garages, and not just technicians, but for the whole business. How do you teach that concept in colleges using VR?
Yeah, so ADAS calibration is a great one when it comes to a VR learning experience, because it's process, and VR is great for teaching process. So colleges that have got access to it, they'll be able to teach the learners all about the environment setup, making sure that the workshop is appropriately prepared for an ADAS calibration, that there's no excessively shiny floors, or there's no excessive bright lights that are either casting shadows or casting white spots on the floor that could confuse the cameras, the optical sensors. And then the learner, once the learner's confident that the environment is set up correctly and that they're wearing the correct PPE and what have you, the learner that can then crack on with conducting a full one or two couple of ADAS calibrations. So we're teaching them how to do a forward-facing camera calibration and how to conduct a forward-facing radar calibration in this virtual experience. And by the time that learner's completed all of the steps, they will very much have hands-on experience of conducting that procedure as close to doing it in reality as you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really progressive, I would think, for colleges. And I know that you've developed a system further that allows standard Meta headsets to be used without a complex setup. So what problem were you trying to solve there?
Yeah, so managing managing virtual reality experiences it can be a little bit problematic, and organizations running multiple headsets can come into some areas where there's quite a lot of investment required in additional pieces of software to be able to administrate the headsets. And I'm a big fan of making training as accessible to all as possible. So we decided to create our own management system, a learner management system, Lens LMS. And what the Lens LMS does is it allows both us to administrate the software on our clients' headsets, and to allow our clients to administrate the learning performance of their learners. And so we've facilitated a certification system that can be linked into to IMI certification processes too. Well, in fact, it is. It's possible for learners to be able to get an IMI certificate off the back of completing one of these virtual reality experiences. We also wanted to look at ways of managing the login process too, because if you want to link a learner's journey into a certificate, that means there needs to be a dedicated login process. It can't just be a general app that is then used by multiple people, because the app doesn't know who's completing those processes. So we had to come up with a way of managing the login process. And the conventional way of doing it is through a username and a password. But when you've got a VR headset on your head and you need to enter in a potentially long username and a secure password, that's easier said than done, because you've got to remember it, or you've got to be constantly taking your headset off to read a screen or a note paper or a notepad or whatever, to be able to then enter it back in and log in. And it was a fiddly process, and I didn't like the sound of that. So we initially set it up so that it's possible for people to log in using their mobile phone.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm chancing it slightly, and I'm working on the principle of people remembering their mobile phone number, and I know we don't all, but it's one step closer. And so learners are able to log in by simply putting their mobile phone number in. Little code will get sent to them via SMS, and then they put that code in to confirm that it allow us to prove that it really is them, and away they go. They've got into the learning environment. That evolved further still, and where that evolved is some training providers have concerns about learners issuing their mobile phones to other companies such as us, or even just requesting that personal information from their learners. So we've also done a little bolt-on where learners are able to log in using a college provided email address, and they can enter in that email address. In turn, there'll be a little code sent to that same email account. That code can then be put into the VR experience, and away you go, the learner's in, and we know that it is that learner that is conducting that training, and we can then facilitate certification linked to the individual progress that individual learners make. So there you go. There's a quick summary of Lens LMS.
So as far as it comes to like a college looking to set this up, is cost still the biggest barrier, or is it the technical usability angle?
Well, I think I'd probably say
Or
the
neither?
biggest barrier is if they got the headsets or not.
Right. Okay.
Simple as that. Once that initial purchase of headsets has been conducted, then they're away. Now, at the moment, we're rolling out these virtual experiences using Meta technology, Meta 2, Meta 3S, and Meta 3 headsets. But they're still running on a Android system in many ways, and so as time goes by, we'll start rolling them out for other make headsets too, and we'll be very interested to hear what headsets colleges and training providers have got or are interested in purchasing to make sure we've got the right software solutions for them.
Right. So when a college asks about a pilot program, how would that work from their point of asking and then for being in the college?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Once we get the heads up that they're interested in a pilot, we can issue them some free logins, give them a chance to test drive it, make sure it's working with their IT systems, and away they go. So essentially, we can issue little codes, and these codes allow the enrollment process to take place. At lens-lms.com. They complete the enrollment process. That allows us to learn about either the dedicated email address or the mobile phone number or whatever that the provider wishes their learners to use for logging in, and then the accounts get automatically created in the background, and away they go. So it's a pretty seamless process, and we've got a nice little run of colleges that are ready to receive these pilot test runs right now, and we're looking forward to roll it out for them.
Do you think colleges are ready? Because I know VR's been around for quite some time I don't know about in automotive, but it's been around for a while. But do you think colleges and these courses, do you think the staff and the students are ready to take it up?
Yeah, I think so. That's certainly been the vibe that I've been getting. Young people, and it generally is young people, not always, but generally, are pretty quick to put VR headsets on. I've been at various different trade shows with our friends and partners at LKQ, and you know, if I see a few learner age people walking past, I can be pretty confident within a few minutes they'll be wearing one of our VR headsets and working their way through it. So I think the learners are ready, and there's, as you say, VR's been around for a while, and so there are a lot of lecturers at colleges that have got some first-hand experience of working with VR, and those training providers and colleges that haven't yet experienced it, it's not that hard a thing to get your teeth into. You know, even just the process of buying one headset and sticking it on your head from out of the box, brand new. Meta holds your hand very well in teaching these first steps, and really once you've got those first steps under your belt that you get to experience when you use a VR headset for the first time, will put you in a position where being able to understand what we're asking the colleges and the learners to do isn't that big a leap. We also make sure we're creating lots of video-based help files to support our customers to make the whole experience as user-friendly as we possibly can.
So if you had to summarize, if you've got like one, maybe two sentences to speak to a college manager, director of a course, how would you summarize the difference between traditional training and VR enhanced training? What's the headline?
Immersion, the power of learning through immersion.
Okay.
They're learning experiences that will stay with learners for life. They're memorable experiences, and so if we want to, if we all want to be part of the evolution of learning, then it's a great time to be able to jump on board. Another area that I would just throw into the mix as well is it's wonderful for teaching high risk activities too. And so if there's concerns associated to teaching things like high voltage safety in a safe and controlled environment, there's not much better than VR for teaching those sorts of subjects.
Yes. Yes, safety is obviously critical in some instances, so it's a really good way in without causing any risks.
Yeah. I mean, high voltage battery repair would be a wonderful example. You know, something like high voltage battery repair involves working with live high voltage. And whenever working with live high voltage comes into play, it is absolutely essential that people know intricately exactly what they are doing. They must be competent. And it's possible for us to teach high voltage safety and being competent at working with live high voltage in a VR environment. You know, we can do extremely well, and we can be confident that learners are learning what they need to know, and they're not just getting a box ticked. They're learning how to do the job properly, and that's what, you know, that's what the electricity at work regulations are all about and are preaching. It's about employers and all of us knowing that our staff and ourselves are competent at a potentially risky job, and it's competence that keeps people safe.
If a college or even a private educator wants to find out more about sort of using one of your VR demos, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, well, they go to our virtualacademy.com, and we've got an area, we've got a tab there that's called Bespoke Training, VR and CGI. And if you go to Bespoke Training, VR and CGI, you'll see a page which is telling viewers a bit more about our services, and there's a contact us form, our telephone numbers on the website too, as is an email address. We're not hard to get hold of. Just give us a shout, and it will be a pleasure to support in any way we can.
Okay, thank you, Ben. That's brilliant to find out how technology can actually change lives from an early age onwards into industry as well. So that's been really good to hear about how VR in colleges is progressing and how our virtual academy is leading the way.
Wonderful. Thanks very much for your time today, Tosca. It's been a pleasure talking to you.